Pretend you still love me. Scott's voice breaks as he stands in the middle of the park, phone pressed to his ear, desperation bleeding through every word. His ex-wife, Susan, the woman who walked out on him for a man with deeper pockets, is silent on the other end. Just for one day, Susan, that's all I'm asking. One day. 30 feet away, his 7-year-old daughter Bonnie swings higher and higher, her laughter cutting through the afternoon air. She doesn't know her father is begging. She doesn't know her mother stopped caring the day she left. Please, Scott whispers. Her school play is next week. She's been practicing her lines every night. She keeps asking when you're coming. I can't keep lying to her. Susan's laugh comes through the speaker, sharp and cruel. Then stop lying, Scott. Tell her the truth. Tell her I moved on. Tell her you were never enough. The line goes dead. Scott's hand drops to his side, the phone slipping from his fingers onto the grass. His chest tightens. His vision blurs. Bonnie calls out from the swings, "Daddy, watch me." But he can't move, can't breathe, can't figure out how to walk back to her and pretend everything's fine. What is he supposed to tell her now? He bends down to pick up his phone, his whole body trembling, ready to leave before Bonnie sees him like this. But then a voice cuts through the silence behind him. That was hard to watch. Scott freezes. He turns slowly and sees her, Julia, his CEO, standing there with an expression he's never seen before. Not pity, something else. Something that makes his heart skip. "How long have you been standing there?" he asks, voice hollow. Julia steps closer, her eyes locked on his. "Long enough," she says quietly. "Long enough to know that what you just did, that kind of love, most people will never understand it." Scott stares at her, confused, broken, not understanding where this is going. But Julia isn't done. "And long enough to know," she continues, her voice steady, now firm, "that your ex-wife just made the biggest mistake of her life." Before we continue, let us know in the comment section where in the world you're tuning in from. We love seeing how far our stories reach. And if this story speaks to you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Scott doesn't move. He just stares at Julia, his CEO, standing there in the middle of the park like she's materialized out of thin air. She's not supposed to be here. She's supposed to be in board meetings and corner offices, not watching him fall apart next to a playground. "I don't understand," Scott manages, his voice barely above a whisper. Julia glances over at Bonnie, still swinging, still oblivious to the wreckage of her father's heart. Then she looks back at Scott, and there's something in her eyes that makes him feel seen in a way he hasn't felt in years. "Walk with me," she says simply. It's not a request from a boss. It's an offer from someone who understands what drowning looks like. Scott hesitates, then calls out to Bonnie, "Sweetie, I'll be right over there, okay? Stay where I can see you." "Okay, Daddy?" They walk toward a bench on the far side of the playground, close enough to keep Bonnie in sight, but far enough for privacy. Scott's hands are still shaking. He sits down heavily, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. "I didn't mean for you to see that," he says. "I know." Julia sits beside him, leaving space between them, but not too much. "I came to the park to clear my head after work. I wasn't following you, if that's what you're thinking." "I wasn't thinking anything." Scott laughs bitterly. "I can barely think at all right now." There's a long silence. Bonnie's laughter floats over to them, and it makes Scott's chest ache even more. She sounds so happy, so innocent. She has no idea her mother just destroyed him all over again. "How old is she?" Julia asks, nodding toward Bonnie. 7. Just turned 7 last month. Scott's voice softens despite everything. She wanted a princess party. I tried my best, but I'm not good at that stuff. The cake was lopsided. The decorations were all wrong. But she said it was perfect. I'm sure it was. She's a good kid. Scott continues, and now he can't stop. The words just pour out. She deserves better than this. Better than me scrambling every day to be enough. Better than a mother who can't even show up for a school play. Julia turns to face him fully now. Can I ask you something? Why did you call her? Your ex-wife. Scott's jaw tightens. Because Bonnie keeps asking, every single day. When is Mommy coming? Why doesn't Mommy call? Does Mommy still love me? And I keep making excuses. I keep telling her that Mommy's busy, that Mommy's working, that Mommy loves her very much. But I'm running out of lies. So you thought if Susan showed up for one day? I thought maybe Bonnie could have one good memory. Scott interrupts, his voice breaking. One moment where she feels like she has a real family, where she doesn't feel abandoned. I wasn't asking Susan to come back. I wasn't asking her to love me. I just wanted her to pretend. For 3 hours. For our daughter. Julia is quiet for a long moment. When she speaks, her voice is steady, but something flickers in her expression. What did she say? She laughed at me. Scott's hands ball into fists. She said I was pathetic, that I need to move on, that she has a real life now with someone who can actually provide. That's cruel. That's Susan. Scott stands up abruptly, pacing now. I gave her everything. I worked 2 jobs to put her through business school. I supported every dream she had. And the second she graduated, the second she got a taste of success, she met Richard, some executive with a yacht and a vacation house, and I became irrelevant. You're not irrelevant to Bonnie. I know. Scott stops pacing and looks at Julia, really looks at her. But sometimes I feel like I'm drowning, and I don't know how much longer I can keep my head above water. Every day is a battle. Every question Bonnie asks is a knife. And I can't tell her the truth because she's 7. She still believes in fairy tales. She still thinks her mom is coming back. Julia stands, and she's closer now. Close enough that Scott can see the determination in her eyes. Your daughter is lucky to have you, she says firmly. I've watched you at work, Scott. I've seen how you leave exactly at 5 every day to pick her up. I've seen how you bring her homework to the office when you have to stay late. I've seen how you turn down promotions because they'd require travel. That's not drowning. That's love. Real love. The kind most people never figure out. Scott feels something crack open inside him. You've noticed all that? I notice everything about my employees, Julia says, and there's a small smile playing at her lips now. Especially the good ones. Before Scott can respond, Bonnie comes running over, breathless and grinning. Daddy, I'm hungry. Can we get pizza? Scott forces himself to shift gears, to become dad again, to push down everything that's screaming inside him. He crouches down to Bonnie's level, smoothing her hair back. Sure, sweetheart. Pizza sounds perfect. Bonnie notices Julia for the first time and tilts her head. Who are you? I'm Julia. I work with your dad. Are you his boss? Bonnie asks with the bluntness only children can manage. I am. Is my daddy in trouble? Julia laughs, and it's warm and genuine. No, honey. Your daddy is one of the best people I know. Bonnie beams at that, then tugs on Scott's hand. Can Julia come get pizza with us? Scott freezes. This is too much, too fast, too complicated. But before he can politely decline, Julia speaks. I'd love to. And just like that, everything shifts. They end up at a small pizzeria 3 blocks away, the kind with checkered tablecloths and breadsticks that arrive before you even order. Bonnie chatters non-stop about her upcoming school play, about how she's playing a flower in the garden scene, about how she's been practicing her one line every night. "What's your line?" Julia asks, genuinely interested. Bonnie sits up straighter, clears her throat dramatically, and announces, "The sun makes me grow." "That's beautiful," Julia says, and she means it. "Daddy helped me practice," Bonnie continues. "He pretends to be the sun. He's really good at it." Scott feels his throat tighten. He can't look at Julia, can't let her see how close to the edge he is. But then Bonnie asks the question he's been dreading. "Is Mommy coming to my play?" The pizzeria goes quiet. Or maybe it just feels that way to Scott. He opens his mouth, but nothing comes out. What is he supposed to say? How does he keep lying? How does he tell her the truth? Julia's hand moves across the table. Not touching him, but close. A presence. A reminder that he's not alone. "Bonnie," Scott starts carefully. "Mommy is very busy right now." "She's always busy," Bonnie interrupts. And there's something in her voice now. Something older than 7. "She doesn't want to see me anymore, does she?" Scott's heart shatters. "Sweetie, no, that's not. It's okay, Daddy." Bonnie looks down at her plate, suddenly fascinated by the pizza crust. "I know she doesn't love us anymore." The words hang in the air like smoke. Scott can't breathe, can't think, can't do anything but stare at his daughter, who somehow already knows the truth he's been trying so hard to hide. Julia speaks into the silence, her voice gentle but clear. "Bonnie, sometimes adults make mistakes. Sometimes they forget what's really important. But that doesn't mean you're not lovable. That doesn't mean you're not special. Do you understand?" Bonnie looks up at Julia with wide eyes. Then slowly, she nods. Scott watches this exchange, and something inside him begins to crack wide open. This woman, his CEO, sitting here in a pizza shop with his broken family, saying the exact words his daughter needed to hear, words he couldn't find. The rest of dinner passes in a blur. They talk about school, about favorite colors, about anything but the elephant in the room. When they finally leave, Bonnie hugs Julia goodbye without being prompted. "Will you come to my play?" Bonnie asks. Julia looks at Scott, a question in her eyes. He nods, barely perceptible, because what else can he do? "I'll be there," Julia promises. As they walk to the car, Bonnie holds Scott's hand and says quietly, "I like her, Daddy. She's nice." "Yeah," Scott whispers. "She is." That night, after Bonnie is asleep, Scott sits alone in the dark living room, replaying everything. The phone call with Susan, Julia appearing like some kind of guardian angel. Dinner, Bonnie's heartbreaking question. His phone buzzes. A text from Julia. "Thank you for letting me join you tonight. Bonnie is wonderful. You're doing an amazing job, Scott. Don't forget that." Scott stares at the message for a long time. Then he types back, "Thank you for everything." 3 dots appear, disappear, appear again. "We should talk, really talk. Tomorrow?" Scott's finger hovers over the keyboard. This is dangerous territory. This is his boss. This is complicated. This could be a disaster. But then he thinks about how Julia looked at Bonnie, how she spoke to her, how she saw Scott, really saw him in that park. "Tomorrow," he replies. He has no idea what's coming next, no idea how this story ends. But for the first time in 2 years, since Susan walked out, since he became a single father drowning in responsibility and heartbreak, Scott Scott feels something he thought was gone forever. Hope. The next morning comes too fast. Scott barely sleeps, running through 1,000 scenarios of what Julia wants to talk about. By the time he drops Bonnie at school and arrives at the office, his stomach is in knots. Julia's assistant stops him before he reaches his desk. "Ms. Baker wants to see you. Conference room B9, o'clock." Scott checks his watch. He has 15 minutes. 15 minutes to figure out what to say, how to act, whether last night was real or some fever dream born from desperation. When he walks into the conference room, Julia is already there, 2 cups of coffee on the table. She's not in her usual power suit, just slacks and a simple blouse. She looks human, approachable. It throws him off balance. "Sit," she says, pushing one of the cups toward him. "You look like you need this." Scott sits, wrapping his hands around the warm cup. "I didn't sleep much." "Neither did I." Julia leans back in her chair, studying him. "I kept thinking about what you said yesterday, about pretending, about asking someone to fake love for a few hours, just so your daughter could feel normal." Scott stiffens. "I know how it sounds. It sounds like you're carrying weight that would break most people," Julia says quietly. "And you're doing it alone." "I have Bonnie, that's enough." "Is it?" Julia's eyes don't leave his face. "Scott, I'm going to tell you something I don't talk about. Something almost no one at this company knows." Scott waits, his heart hammering against his ribs. Julia takes a breath. "When I was 8 years old, my father left. Just walked out one day and never came back. My mother worked 3 jobs trying to keep us afloat. I watched her pretend everything was fine while she was falling apart inside. I watched her lie to me about where my father was, about why he didn't call, about why we suddenly couldn't afford dance classes or new shoes." Scott's chest tightens. "Julia, I'm not finished." Her voice is steady, but there's pain underneath, old and deep. "When I was 15, my mother sat me down and told me the truth. My father had left us for another woman, someone younger, someone without the baggage of a struggling family. And you know what I felt? Relief. Relief that someone finally stopped pretending. That someone finally trusted me with the truth." Scott sets down his coffee cup, his hands shaking. "You think I should tell Bonnie?" "I think Bonnie already knows," Julia says gently. "Kids aren't stupid, Scott. They feel things. They see things. Last night at dinner, when she said her mother doesn't love you anymore, she wasn't asking a question. She was stating a fact she's already accepted. She's 7 years old. And she's smarter than you're giving her credit for." Julia leans forward now, her voice softening. "I'm not saying you need to tell her everything. I'm not saying you need to destroy whatever image of her mother she still has. But I am saying that the lies are hurting you more than they're protecting her." Scott feels something break loose inside him. "I don't know how to do this without her. Susan was my whole world. We were together since college. I thought we'd grow old together. I thought—" His voice cracks. "I thought I was enough." "You were enough," Julia says firmly. "She was the one who wasn't. Then why does it feel like I failed?" "Because that's what abandonment does," Julia says. "It makes you question everything. Your worth, your choices, your ability to be loved. I spent years thinking I wasn't good enough for my father to stay. That if I'd been better, smarter, less difficult, maybe he wouldn't have left. But you built all this." Scott gestures vaguely at the office, at the company Julia has turned into a multi-million-dollar success. "You became someone." "I became successful," Julia corrects. "That's That's not the same as becoming whole. I threw myself into work because it was easier than dealing with the fact that I was terrified of being abandoned again. Do you know how many relationships I've sabotaged because I couldn't trust anyone to stay? Scott stares at her, seeing something he's never noticed before. The cracks beneath the armor, the loneliness hiding behind the power suits and corner office. Why are you telling me this? He asks. Julia's expression shifts, something vulnerable crossing her face. Because when I saw you in that park yesterday, begging someone who doesn't deserve you to pretend to care, I saw myself. I saw every time I bent over backward trying to be enough for people who were never going to choose me. And I thought... She pauses, collecting herself. I thought maybe you needed to hear that you're not alone. The silence stretches between them, heavy with things unsaid. There's something else, Julia continues, her voice businesslike now, like she's putting the armor back on. I'm offering you a promotion, senior project manager, 20% raise, better hours. You'd have more flexibility with Bonnie. Scott's mind reels. Julia, I can't accept that. Not after. After what? After I saw you being a good father? After I witnessed you putting your daughter first? Julia's eyes flash. Scott, you've been turning down promotions for 2 years because you didn't want to travel, didn't want to miss Bonnie's bedtime. You know how rare that is? How many executives I know who'll sacrifice anything for their career? That's different. It's exactly the same. Julia stands now, pacing to the window. You asked your ex-wife to pretend to love you. I'm asking you to stop pretending you don't deserve better. From her. From this job. From life. Scott stands too, something building in his chest. And what about you? Julia turns, caught off guard. What about me? You said you sabotage relationships. You said you're terrified of being abandoned. So why are you here? Why did you come to dinner? Why are you offering me this promotion? Scott takes a step closer. What are you pretending, Julia? The air between them crackles with tension. I'm not pretending anything, Julia says, but her voice wavers. Yes, you are. Scott's voice is quiet but certain. You're pretending this is just about business. Pretending yesterday was just a coincidence. Pretending you don't. Julia holds up a hand, her composure cracking. Don't finish that sentence. Why not? Because I'm your boss, Scott. Because this crosses every professional line there is. Because you're vulnerable right now, and I won't take advantage of that. What if I don't feel taken advantage of? Scott challenges. What if I feel seen for the first time in years? Julia closes her eyes, and when she opens them, there are tears threatening to spill over. You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. Scott's heart is pounding so hard, he's sure she can hear it. I'm saying that woman yesterday, the one who sat with my daughter and said exactly what she needed to hear, who looked at me like I wasn't broken, who... He stops, steadying himself. I'm saying I see you too, Julia. And I think you're just as scared as I am. Of course I'm scared, Julia whispers. I'm terrified. Because people like us, Scott, people who've been left behind, we don't get second chances. We don't get happy endings. Maybe we do, Scott says. Maybe we just have to stop pretending we don't deserve them. Julia stares at him for a long moment. Then she laughs. But it's not cruel like Susan's laugh. It's broken and honest and human. This is insane, she says. Completely. We could ruin everything. We could, Scott agrees. Or we could stop being afraid of our own happiness. Julia wipes at her eyes, composure slipping back into place piece by piece. I need time to think about this. About us, about what this means. Okay. And you need to talk to Bonnie. Really talk to her. About her mother. About what's real and what's not. Scott nods. I know. And for what it's worth. Julia meets his eyes. Bonnie asked me to come to her play. I'm coming because I want to, not because I feel obligated. Is that okay? More than okay, Scott says softly. They stand there in the conference room, two broken people trying to figure out if broken pieces can fit together into something whole. That evening, Scott sits on the edge of Bonnie's bed, her favorite stuffed rabbit clutched in her arms. She looks at him with those big eyes, waiting. Sweetie, I need to tell you something. Scott begins, his throat tight. About Mommy. Bonnie's expression doesn't change. She's not coming to my play, is she? No, baby, she's not. Is she ever coming back? Scott takes a shaky breath. This is the moment. The moment where he stops lying, stops pretending, stops protecting her from a truth she already knows. I don't think so. He says honestly. Mommy made choices that took her away from us, and those choices hurt. They hurt me, and I know they hurt you too. Bonnie is quiet for a long moment. Then she says, Do you still love her? The question pierces straight through him. I love the person I thought she was. But I'm learning that sometimes people change, and sometimes holding on to something that's gone only makes the hurt worse. Like trying to hold water? Bonnie asks. Scott smiles, despite the tears in his eyes. Exactly like that. Daddy? Bonnie's voice is small. Is Julia going to leave us too? Scott's heart clenches. Julia's my friend, sweetheart. And she's coming to your play because she wants to see you shine. But I don't know what happens after that. Life doesn't come with guarantees. But she makes you smile, Bonnie observes with the clarity only children possess. You haven't smiled like that in a really long time. Scott pulls his daughter into his arms, holding her tight. You make me smile every single day. That's different, Bonnie says into his shoulder. That's daddy-daughter smiles. With Julia, you smile like you used to smile at Mommy, before she stopped smiling back. Out of the mouths of children. The week passes in a strange blur. Scott takes the promotion. Julia maintains professional distance at work, but texts him every night, asking how Bonnie is, sharing small details about her own day. They're circling each other, both terrified, both hopeful, both trying to figure out if they're brave enough to try. The night before Bonnie's play, Scott finds himself staring at his phone, looking at old photos of him and Susan. Happy photos from a lifetime ago. He thinks about the man he was then, the man who believed love was enough, who thought trying harder would make someone stay. He deletes the photos, all of them. It's time to stop looking backward. He texts Julia, Tomorrow, after the play, can we talk? Really talk? Her response comes immediately. Yes. I've been hoping you'd ask. Scott saves the message, reads it 3 more times before bed. For the first time in years, he falls asleep not with dread, but with anticipation. Tomorrow, Bonnie will say her line. Tomorrow, Julia will be there in the audience. Tomorrow, whatever happens next will happen. And maybe, just maybe, tomorrow he'll stop pretending to be okay and start actually being okay. Maybe tomorrow is where everything changes. The school auditorium smells like old wood and nervous children. Scott sits in the 3rd row, his palms sweating, scanning the crowd for Julia. Parents fill the seats around him. Cameras ready, programs rustling. He checks his phone. 5 minutes until curtain. Then he sees her. Julia, slipping into the seat beside him, slightly breathless. Sorry, I'm late. Traffic was... She stops, meeting his eyes. Hi. Hi, Scott says, and suddenly everything else fades away. The auditorium, the noise, the fear. It's just her, sitting next to him, choosing to be here. How's she doing? Julia asks, nodding toward the stage. Terrified, excited. She changed her costume 3 times this morning. Scott's voice is soft, fond. She wanted everything to be perfect. It will be. The lights dim. The curtain rises. And there, in the back row of flowers, is Bonnie. She's wearing a yellow dress with green petals sewn around the collar. Her face is serious, concentrated, waiting for her moment. Scott's heart swells so much it hurts. The play unfolds, a simple story about a garden coming to life. When Bonnie's moment arrives, she steps forward, chin up, and declares with absolute conviction, "The sun makes me grow." It's 1 line, 7 words. But Scott has never been more proud of anything in his entire life. Julia reaches over and squeezes his hand. Scott doesn't pull away. After the play, Bonnie runs to them, still in her costume, her face glowing. She throws herself into Scott's arms first, then turns to Julia. Did you see me? Did you see my line? You were perfect, Julia says, kneeling down to Bonnie's level. The best flower in the whole garden. Really? Really? Other parents swirl around them, congratulating their children, taking photos. Scott watches Bonnie talk animatedly to Julia about the play, about the other kids, about how she almost forgot her line but remembered just in time. He watches how Julia listens, really listens, like Bonnie's words are the most important thing in the world. And something clicks into place. This is what family looks like. Not perfect, not planned, just real. Ice cream? Scott suggests. To celebrate? Yes. Bonnie cheers. They end up at the same ice cream shop Scott used to take Bonnie to when she was younger, when things were simpler, when Susan was still around. But somehow, sitting here now with Julia across from him and Bonnie between them, it doesn't hurt like it used to. Bonnie gets chocolate chip. Julia gets vanilla. Scott gets nothing, too nervous to eat. Daddy, you're being weird, Bonnie observes, licking her cone. Am I? You keep looking at Julia funny. Julia nearly chokes on her ice cream. Scott feels his face go red. Bonnie, he starts, but his daughter isn't finished. It's okay, Bonnie says matter-of-factly. I like when you look at her like that. It's how princes look at princesses in my books. Julia and Scott exchange a glance. There's something unspoken passing between them. Something that's been building for days, maybe longer. Sweetie, Scott says carefully, I need to take Julia somewhere to talk for a bit. Would it be okay if we dropped you at Mrs. Henderson's for an hour? Mrs. Henderson is their neighbor, a grandmother type who's watched Bonnie countless times before. Bonnie looks between them, then grins. Are you going to ask her to be your girlfriend? Bonnie. Because you should. She's nice, and she came to my play, and she doesn't look at you like you're sad. She looks at you like you're the sun. Scott's throat closes up. Julia's eyes are shining. Go talk, Bonnie says wisely. I'll be fine. 20 minutes later, Scott and Julia are walking through the same park where everything started. The sun is setting, painting everything gold and amber. They walk in silence for a while, both trying to find the right words. Finally, Julia speaks. I've been thinking about what you said, about being scared, about deserving happiness. She stops walking, turns to face him. I've spent my entire adult life building walls, protecting myself, making sure no one could get close enough to hurt me. And then you showed up in that park, broken and desperate and still fighting for your daughter. And I realized something. What? Scott's voice is barely above a whisper. That maybe being alone isn't safer. Maybe it's just lonelier. Julia takes a shaky breath. I don't have this figured out, Scott. I don't know how to be in a relationship without sabotaging it. I don't know how to trust that someone won't leave. But I know that when I'm with you and Bonnie, I feel something I haven't felt in years. What's that? Home. Scott closes the distance between them. I need to tell you something too. Okay. 2 years ago, when Susan left, I thought my life was over. I thought I'd never feel anything again except pain and responsibility. I thought I'd spend the rest of my life pretending to be okay for Bonnie's sake. He reaches for Julia's hand. And then you appeared in this park and you saw me. Really saw me. Not the mess, not the failure, just me. And for the first time since Susan walked out, I felt like maybe I could be more than just a man drowning in his own grief. Scott, I'm not asking you to fix me. Scott continues. I'm not asking you to save me. I'm just asking if you'd be willing to try this with me. Whatever this is, whatever it becomes. Julia's tears finally spill over. I'm terrified. Me too. What if I mess this up? What if I hurt Bonnie? What if I... Scott cups her face gently, stopping the spiral of fears. What if you don't? What if we figure it out together? What if we stop pretending we're not allowed to be happy? Julia laughs through her tears. You keep saying that. Stop pretending. Because it's true. Scott's voice is steady now, certain. I spent 2 years pretending Susan might come back, pretending I didn't need help, pretending I was okay. I'm done pretending, Julia. I want something real, even if it's messy, even if it's complicated, even if it's scary. It's all of those things, Julia whispers. I know. And I still want it anyway, she says. I want you. I want Bonnie. I want movie nights and school plays and conversations over coffee. I want all of it. Scott's heart feels like it might burst. Julia Baker, will you take a chance on us? Yes, she breathes. Yes, I will. And then they're kissing, soft and gentle and full of promise. It's not perfect. Their noses bump. Julia's still crying. But it's real. It's honest. It's theirs. When they finally pull apart, Julia laughs. We're going to have to tell HR. Worth it, Scott says, grinning wider than he has in years. They walk back to his car, hands intertwined, talking about next steps. How to tell Bonnie officially. How to navigate the workplace dynamics. How to build something together from 2 broken pieces. I want to do this right, Julia says. I want to take our time. I want Bonnie to feel secure and comfortable. She already loves you, Scott says. I love her too, Julia admits. She's special, Scott, just like her father. 3 months later, Scott stands in Julia's living room, nervous in a way he hasn't been since he first asked Susan out in college. But this is different. This isn't desperate hope. This isn't pleading for scraps of affection. This is real. Bonnie sits on the couch, eating popcorn, watching him with knowing eyes. You're going to do it, aren't you? She whispers. What gave it away? You've been weird all day, and you keep touching your pocket. Scott laughs. He pulls out the small velvet box he's been carrying for weeks, turning it over in his hands. Julia walks in from the kitchen, sees him standing there with the box, and stops dead. Scott? Bonnie jumps up, excited, bouncing on her toes. Scott drops to one knee. His heart is hammering, but his voice is steady. Julia, 3 months ago, I was a man who thought he'd never feel whole again. I thought the best I could hope for was to survive, to get through each day for Bonnie's sake. And then you showed up and reminded me that I deserve more than survival, that we deserve more. He opens the box. I'm not asking you to pretend anything. I'm asking you to build something real with us. Will you marry me? Julia's hands cover her mouth. Tears stream down her face. For a moment, she doesn't speak, and Scott's heart stops. Then she nods. Yes. Yes. 1,000 times yes. Bonnie cheers, launching herself at both of them, and suddenly they're all hugging, crying, laughing. A family. Imperfect and patched together, and absolutely right. The wedding is small. Just close friends and family in Julia's backyard on a sunny afternoon 6 months later. Bonnie stands beside them as the flower girl, beaming in her yellow dress. When the officiant asks if anyone objects, there's only silence and smiles. When Scott kisses his bride, Bonnie claps so hard her hands turn red. At the reception, Scott finds himself alone for a moment, watching Julia dance with Bonnie, both of them laughing. He thinks about the man he was 2 years ago, the man begging his ex-wife to pretend, the man who thought he'd never be enough. That man is gone now. In his place is someone who knows his worth, someone who found love not by pretending, but by being honest, by being real. You okay? Julia appears beside him, her hand finding his. Better than okay, Scott says. I'm happy. Me too. Bonnie runs over, grabbing both their hands. Come dance! And they do. The three of them, swaying together, off rhythm and perfect. Scott looks at his wife and daughter, and he realizes something. Love isn't about being perfect. It's not about pretending everything is fine or begging someone to stay. It's about choosing each other every single day, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. This is what real looks like, and it's more than enough. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to Soul Story for more powerful tales of love, resilience, and second chances. Drop a comment below and tell us what you think. And if you believe in new beginnings, hit that like button. Thank you for watching, and remember, you deserve real love, not pretend love. Never settle for less.